welcome to the brand new Trent End Podcast brought to you by the Sports News Blitz. And this is going to be a podcast purely focused on Nottingham Forest. Now, as a Notts County fan, that's quite difficult for me to say. However, we've got Lewis Wheeldon here, and normally he'll be joined by Jamie Martin, another Nottingham Forest fan. So, Lewis, thank you ever so much for being here.
That's no problem at all. I'm looking forward to it.
Fantastic stuff. So today we're going to have a look at a bit of a season review of Nottingham Forest. Now, it's been a great season for Forest, obviously tipped to be relegated at the start of the season, and they've ended up in a European spot. So by all accounts, they've massively exceeded expectations. How have you found this season?
Genuinely, I think that was the end of my 8th year as a season ticket holder at Forest, and this has been unlike I've anything seen before. You know, like 3 years ago, or maybe 4 years ago, I would have said that the Premier League itself was an absolute far cry from what Nottingham Forest could achieve. So getting to the Premier League was one thing, and then surviving in it in back-to-back years was incredible as well. That was an incredible effort. Because of those years, everyone seemed to think it was going to be, third time's a charm and we'll go down this year. And I don't know what happened to us, to be honest. Like, Nuno just seemed to know exactly what we needed in the summer. He seemed to know exactly what sort of team we could be and how to get the best out of us. He wanted to make us hard to beat, quick on the break, someone that could pick up scalps, with 30% possession and stuff like that. And he just made us amazing, just seemingly overnight. We had a few good results at the start of the season. Really picked up form over the sort of the back end of autumn and then over winter, and we just never really looked back, to be honest, until now, I guess.
Yeah, and obviously Nuno has transformed the quite a massive squad that it was of kind of mismatched players together and become European. Yeah, well, I was going to say European winners, but that's not really right, is it yet?
Hopefully,
in European qualifiers. But like you said, back end of August, you had a really tremendous run of form, and throughout the majority of the season, you've been really, really solid, really difficult to beat, and then Champions League places are in your grasp, and it seems like you've slipped at the final hurdle. Am I right in saying that? Is there a frustration amongst Forest fans in that, or is it a case of, yes, we could have got it, but we've got Europe, so I'm happy?
I really don't know, to be honest, because I was there. I was there on Sunday against that Chelsea game, and I came away from it with absolutely no idea how I was supposed to feel. Because at the end of the game, obviously, all the Chelsea fans were gloating about them getting Champions League, and then they all left, and then we had the lap of appreciation. Sells won the Golden Glove, which is insane for me to say out loud about a Nottingham Forest player. Milenkovic crowned our Player of the Year, and it was generally like quite a good feeling around the ground. And then we walked back to the car, and I was like, we didn't get Champions League football. I really don't know how to say it, because as we just said previously, everyone and their dog said that we were supposed to be going down this season. Everyone said that we were relegation contenders, having been one for 2 years on the bounce, and at no point during the season did we ever look like relegation contenders. So I think no matter what way you spin it, if you'd have said at the start of the season, this is going to be the season that you're going to have, I think everyone in the fan base would snap your hand off for it. The problem is we were up there for so long. Like, we were up there for an incredibly long amount of time. I think Adam Summerton put a stat out quite a while back now, that came back up on my timeline the other day. And I can't remember the specific dates of it, but he basically said no team after such amount of games that was in the top 3 has ever finished outside the top 5 in the Premier League. And now Nottingham Forest have done exactly that. We're like the first team to have ever done it, which is the most peak Nottingham Forest thing I could imagine in my life. Like, and part of me is happy that the true spirit of this club has not gone away just yet. But at the same time, it just makes you think, like, if it was any other club, would we be laughing at them for not finishing in the Champions League for a position like that? But I think as the days have gone by, I've sort of tried to move away from it a bit, and I'm getting more and more happy about the fact that we're in Europe. Like, it's the first time we'll be in Europe in 29 years, I want to say. I think it was 1996 when we were last in Europe, and that is a remarkable achievement, no matter what way you spin it, no matter how it ended up, I think. So yeah, it's a real, I don't know, it's happiness tinged with a bit of what could have been, I think.
Yeah, no, and that does make sense. But yeah, as you rightfully said, it's been an extraordinary season, and even if Adam Somerton's pulled the stats out that's gone against you, um, yeah,
When he originally put the stats out, I think it was like I want to say it was about February or March. I think he said it was no team who's finished top three after 26 games or something like that has finished outside the top five. It was just full of us lot in the replies, and he's saying like, Adam, like, I appreciate this, but are you familiar with Nottingham Forest Football Club? And then it ended up being, yeah, Nottingham Forest are the first team to have ever done that, which is just what a football club.
it's history making for good and bad reasons, then, isn't it? Um, so you mentioned in there that obviously Matt Sells won the joint Golden Glove this year. Milenkovic won your Player of the Year. As voted for by was that voted for by the fans? Sorry, is that by the players?
Uh, I'm not entirely sure actually. I want to say it was a fan vote, or maybe a bit of both.
Okay, but I would like to know personally who your player of the season is this year. Who's obviously a lot of the players have gone above and beyond for you to get to the position that you are. But has there been any player that stood out massively for you amongst a crowd of great players?
Um, well, actually, I'm just realising the answer to what you just said a second ago. It was a fan vote, and I actually voted on it, so I probably should have remembered that. I've slept since then. I think on that fan vote, I put down Nikola Milenkovic, who ended up going on to win it for us anyway. But yeah, I would have to say he's my personal player of the season because last season and like a bit of season one in the Premier League as well, set pieces and just trying to be rigid and solid defensively was just such a massive issue for us. It felt like every week we were conceding one, maybe two, set piece goals. And this is more leaning into what I said about Nuno knowing exactly what the team needed to try and bring it forward. He saw that weakness in the team. The set pieces were a real problem, so he goes and signs one of the best, if not the best, aerial defender in all of Serie A. Someone who is consistently playing European football with Fiorentina and is regarded as one of the better centre backs in the league. He brings him over to the City Ground to do to fight a relegation battle. That, well, the original plan anyway. And he was just utterly phenomenal. We go from being this team that doesn't have a huge issue with scoring goals, but always seems to leak them pretty consistently from silly positions and constantly from set pieces as well. To a team who suddenly that isn't a problem anymore. And as soon as the defense was a bit more solid, a bit more rigid, and we could rely on that defense a bit more, the rest of the team kicked on brilliantly. I think loosely speaking, the rest of the team outside of the defence, not including Elliot Anderson, it's the same team, same midfield and attack that we had last season. Obviously, Anderson he was an amazing signing as well, so I don't want to take anything away from him. But the whole team was transformed once the defence was transformed. Once that was solid and once that was reliable, everyone else was able to kick on well. So yeah, and Milenkovic, obviously, I've just been singing his praises regarding who signed him. He himself, he's been phenomenal. He's been utterly phenomenal. Scored some massive goals along the way as well. Goal against Manchester United, goal a couple of weeks back against West Ham that kept us in that fight up until the actual final day where we lost out. He's a phenomenal player in the air, brilliant defensive mind, and I'm a massive fan of it.
I would like to know whether you think Matt Sells has had a big impact on that defence as well. Obviously, like you've said, it leaked goals for quite some time. Was it Matt Turner in goal last season?
Don't say that man's name, Matt.
So yeah, I'll take that as a yes. Predominantly Matt Turner last season, who we know as someone who someone who watches Forest on I imagine a weekly basis, as someone who kind of follows Forest, being a Nottingham-based football supporter anyway. We kind of know he had mistakes in him, to put it lightly. Matt Sells seems to have been a bit more.
Sorry, Matt, I think I've lost you.
Right, we're back in the room. We've had a few technical difficulties, but it seems like we're all better now. As I was saying before I was rudely interrupted, Matt Sells is a lot more robust than Matt Turner. Has he had? I mean, you say Milenkovic has had such a positive impact on that back line, which I don't doubt in the slightest. But do some of those plaudits need to go to a goalkeeper with that defence having the confidence behind him that, if they pass him the ball back, it's going to be fine? He's not going to make silly mistakes. What have we got some plaudits for Matt Sells as well as Milenkovic?
Absolutely, there's plenty of plaudits for Matt Sells. I mean, he obviously came in last season, not this season. We had him for the back half or second half of season 2 in the Premier League, and he was solid last season. But I don't think any of us were like massively blown away. But he was very solid, and I think also because he was at least a pretty solid goalkeeper to have. And Matt Turner and Vlachodimos were both very poor for us in that first half of the season. Then we thought Sells was an absolute godsend last year. This year, I think it's become more apparent that Matt Sells is actually a tremendous goalkeeper. He's a tremendous player. It felt like at a point it was like every single week that he'd pull out like some sort of unbelievable stop. And yeah, like I said, I do agree with you as well. I think in terms of building together a defence that you can have faith in, Matt Sells, the goalkeeper, is obviously a massive part of that, because I think the first half of season prior, I think even if the defence did have a good game, if everyone was singing the same song through the defence, but the goalkeeper behind, if it was Turner, if it was Vlachodimos, whichever one it was, if they were having a bad game, then it just sent shockwaves through the whole team, through the whole defence. Confidence in the team starts with the bloke in the goal behind you. If you can't have faith with what's going on behind you, then you don't have faith in the rest of the team at the end of the day. So I think as soon as Sells came in, he sort of steadied that ship a little bit, and he played really well, getting us away from the relegation zone last season. And then this season, like I say, he's just been utterly phenomenal. It speaks for himself that he gets a Golden Glove at the end of the season. I think he absolutely deserves it. It's a joint Golden Glove, but I don't care. He's been brilliant all season long. He's made some utterly ridiculous saves over the course of the season. I think I can't remember specifically who they were against, annoyingly enough, but I think I was talking elsewhere, and they said like, "Oh, what were your top 3 saves of the season?" I had Sells down as 2 and 3 for some of my saves of the season. Again, it's really irritating me now because come onto the podcast and I've forgotten who they were against. But Matt Sells has made some ridiculous moves this season. And yeah, and I agree with what you say. I think having confidence in him instills a bit of confidence in the rest of the team. So yeah, richly deserved plaudits for him over the course of the season.
So we've spoken there about the players who you think have done really well this season, and I know it's difficult to point out negatives in such a phenomenal season that you've had. But is there any players that you think have maybe been underwhelming this season, or maybe not been pushed as much as the other players have done at all?
I mean, yeah, it's an excellent point, because as you say, it's been a phenomenal year, and it feels maybe a bit weird to try and pick holes on bits that you've been disappointed with after it has been such a successful year. Because I think I wouldn't say there's anybody who has been overwhelmingly disappointing. So like season 1, who was your worst player? Bang, Shelvey. Season 2, who was your worst player? Bang, I'd probably say Matt Turner, who we've just spoken about. This year, I don't really have that player that just sticks straight out to me as like, yes, he was the worst player in the squad this season. I think everybody has had a part to play at some point over the course of the year. But if I had to pick someone, it's not his fault at all, I don't think. But I think Danilo is the first person I would think of straight away. I think, like I say, it's not his fault. He had a really horrible injury on the first game of the season, was out for a good long while. And then obviously it's a broken ankle. It's one of those injuries where can really, affect a player when they're recovered from it. So he came back and he didn't quite have that same burst of energy that he had. Didn't quite, not that he didn't have the work ethic anymore, but maybe a bit scared to commit himself in places, and he just looked like he was struggling for match sharpness from the moment he came back until the end of the season. Again, it's not his fault. I'm not saying that Danilo is a bad player. I'm not saying fucking Danilo's crap, get him sold immediately. But I think the injury had a massive impact on him this season, and we didn't get to see the best of Danilo, and we have seen the best of Danilo at Forest plenty of times. He's been a brilliant player for us largely ever since we signed him. But this season, I just think that that injury just chipped away at him a little bit too much for him to have a huge role to play this year. I I would say, yeah, keep him. Maybe we loan him out next season. Some people, I think I've seen some people say that they wouldn't mind selling him next season. I don't think it'll be the end of the world if either of those things happened. Personally, I really like him. I know he can be really good for us. I think if he can get a proper pre-season schedule behind him, obviously he had one last season, but then the injury just sliced through all of that. If we can keep him sharp, get a good pre-season behind him, and integrate him back into the squad a bit slower as a squad option, I do think we will see those good days from Danilo again. But just this season, I think that injury hampered him, and I would say, again, not his fault, trying to be nice as I can here. I do think, yeah, I would probably put him down for underwhelming.
Right, I see. Yeah, no. In fairness, I can't think of someone from an outside perspective who has stood out as being like, oh, they still playing that guy. Do you know what I mean? Everyone seems to have played really well, and yet Danilo, really unfortunate, bad injury at the start of the season. It's going to derail the season, isn't it? It's just whether Nuno and the fans are willing to kind of give him that time to recover and see if he can come back next season. Kind of moving on to look towards next season now. You know, it's the summer transfer window. Forest have been quite prolific in recent years of signing plenty of players. Do we think that's going to be the same again? Personally, I don't think it will be. I can't see a massive overhaul of players this year. That's from an outside perspective, however. What about yourself?
I'm not. I'm not entirely sure, to be fair, because I think I looked through the squad, and there are plenty of areas where I think like maybe we could do a little bit more. I think one of the bigger things we worried about over the course of the season is squad depth. So I think we play a game against Aston Villa. You look on their bench, and believe Rashford and Marco Asensio are on there. You look at our bench, and no disrespect to the players that have been on our bench for the majority of the season, but they weren't Marcus Rashford and Asensio. There's just strength in depth is a massive, massive thing at this level, and particularly because we are going to be playing in Europe next year. Fixture congestion is going to be a really, really big issue. It can catch out quite a lot of clubs who play in Europe after a bit of time away. And those extra fixtures, and then similarly, clubs who are constantly playing in Europe can quite often be helped by if they have a bad year and they miss out on Europe the following season. The lack of fixture congestion can actually be a bonus. So I think with fixture congestion in mind, we are going to need a bigger squad. How much bigger it can actually get, I'm not too sure. I don't know the exact number of players we have in our Premier League squad. I think for the Champions League, sorry, I keep thinking we got it done. No, for the Conference League, I think it's like a 25-man squad you're allowed. So I don't know how many more spaces we're going to have in a squad like that with the players that we have. But I do think we can have a bit more quality in and around the first team. I think Sells, no problem. Don't need to replace him. Don't want to replace anyone in that back line. No one in that midfield, including Sangari. I think he's going to have a massive part to play next year if we can keep him fit, because he's been great since he came back into the team. And then wouldn't really say I want to replace anybody in the attack. I think, well, first things first, before anything else, I want a striker. We should have signed one in January. I think we should have looked into getting one. Obviously, it was just Wood, and then when he was fit, it was Taiwo Awoniyi for the whole season. Wood has obviously had an amazing year. Taiwo didn't have his greatest year, and then obviously suffered from injuries at several moments, including the one that ended the season. I do think we should go for another striker. I do think that's definitely the area that we need a bit more depth for. I think fullback might be another area that needs looking at. But I think it might be a season of being reactive as well as proactive in our signings, because a lot of people, I feel like I've seen a few of my friends have worried about who we're going to bring in because we haven't got Champions League football. I'm not worried about who we'll bring in. I do still think we can bring in good quality players if we're able to bring in someone like Milenkovic, for example, our player of the season, who was pretty consistently in Europe with Fiorentina. If we can bring him in when he's supposed to be fighting a relegation battle with Forest when he joined in, I'm sure we can bring somebody good in now that we've actually got European football. I'm more concerned about maybe who we're going to keep. I'm very worried about the future of Morgan Gibbs-White. He's a massive part of this team. And I do think, the temptation of going to Manchester City, being given the chance to replace someone like Kevin De Bruyne potentially, a team who's constantly in the battle for major trophies. That's going to be a big head turner for Gibbs White, and they have got Champions League football, which we haven't. So I feel like and obviously Fabrizio Romano has been bloody talking about it for weeks now as well. I do think that maybe if something starts to tick along there, I do worry that Gibbs White will go, and then I worry, well, okay, well, who's going to come in and play that role in the team that Gibbs White can do? I'm terrified that Murillo has his head turned and someone comes in for him and he goes. Again, another Champions League club comes in for him, because I think, right, who can come in and play the role that Murillo plays? The answer to that might genuinely be nobody on the planet can play that sort of role, because Murillo's just a psychopath. But yeah, so I worry about departures. But in terms of signings, I think we need depth, particularly bloody need a striker. And I do think maybe outside the wingers as well, like Elanga, Hudson-Odoi, they're both fantastic. But then I don't think there's much faith in Ramon Sosa. Jota Silva, he's all right. But obviously we've got Dominguez as a centre midfielder. We play him out wide if Hudson-Odoi can't play, when we've got a left winger on the bench that I don't even know if he's still alive, to be honest, because Nuno just doesn't play him. Yeah, but I will actually end this question at some point. We need depth. We need a striker, and I think we should probably look at some left backs as well. Maybe a keeper to back Sells up, because I don't know how much faith Nuno has in Carlos Miguel either.
No, fair enough. I think you're pretty spot on. They're more worried about the departures than you are the signings. I think that's fair to say after this season as a whole. However, I'm going to push you for a name. You've been saying you need a striker. You need someone.
Oh, I see.
Chris Wood and Taiwo Awoniyi. If you've got a checkbook in front of you, if you could sign out however much you'd like. Let's go dream and let's look at something borderline realistic. You're not bringing in Haaland. However, who would you like to bring in on a semi-realistic level?
I like how you could see my line of thinking there. You said, you got a blank checkbook, bringing anyone. I was about to say, right, Mbappe, sad. Absolutely perfect. Semi-realistic. I've seen a lot of people talk. Personally, I think absolute priority position is a new striker, not necessarily to replace Wood, but obviously Wood is creeping along in his 30s now. He's had 2 amazing seasons with Forest, so on that vein, I don't want to replace him. If he can continue this level of form up for more years to come, so be it. Absolutely fine by me. But I wouldn't mind bringing in somebody with a similar profile to Chris Wood, who maybe is a bit younger. And I think all signs are starting to point a bit towards Liam Delap. That is who a lot of people in our fan base are massive fans of. I mean, he scored, I can't remember the exact number of goals that he scored, but he got double digits goals, I think, with Ipswich Town in a relegated team. A team that got relegated quite early, in fairness, as well. That is a remarkable achievement, to be honest. That is a really, really good achievement. He's very quick. He's a shithouse, which everyone at Forest will appreciate, of course. We all love Ryan Yates. You're a Notts County fan, so I'm sure you can appreciate a bit of Ryan Yates as well. And again, he's got that similar profile to Chris Wood. He's a big player. He's a very strong player, but he's a bit quicker. He's younger. He's hungrier. Not sure if maybe he's not as clinical as Chris Wood has been this season, but I do think he does carry similar traits, similar profiles, and I think he's a realistic target that we can maybe go for. Obviously, I think he is very expected to leave Ipswich this summer. I think he's got that exit clause in his contract, and Forest is one of those names that has been sort of juggled around alongside other ones. I think Man United are in there as well. I think so. I think with a lot of other clubs interested in him, I think it would be a bit of a tough ask maybe to actually get Delap in, but that's who I would absolutely, if we're going realistic, that is absolutely who I would like to bring in. If we're going semi-unrealistic, Jonathan David's just left Lille on a free, and I would absolutely kill to have that man at the City Ground, but I think he's probably going to be staying elsewhere in Europe.
I don't know. I mean, when you've got Nottingham and you've got the Trent, who needs places like Milan and Rome and Barcelona and places like that? Who needs them?
Right. I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, Nottingham has a Hooters. You don't see that in Rome. Well, no, I think Liam Delap would be an excellent signing for you, if I'm honest. I hadn't thought about someone like him, whereas that would be, like you've said, a pretty ideal signing. The ones that kind of came to mind for me, again, as an outside perspective, would be someone like Evan Ferguson or to kind of fit the older age range would be Callum Wilson, who obviously isn't getting the game time at Newcastle. Those two would be the sort of ones I think Forest could look at. You've pulled a face at Callum Wilson.
I'm with you on Ferguson. I don't think Wilson's bad, but I think we probably end up looking elsewhere. To be fair.
Yeah, fair. I mean, I'm not the scouting team. Probably a good job. But no, fair enough. I think Liam Delette would be an excellent signing, and no, that would be pretty ideal. And right, just to kind of round us off, obviously we've had a great season this season. I say you've had a great season this season as a Forest fan. Can you expect the same next season? Is this an anomaly? What are your expectations next season, basically?
I think the goal is going to be to do everything in our power to make sure this isn't a one-off season. Similarly to Aston Villa, I think obviously they kind of on a similar story to us in some ways. I think they also were very close to being relegated, and now they've just had Champions League in back-to-back years. They were in the Conference League 2 years before that as well, and they've obviously done amazing work. I think when they got Conference League, which was also a little bit unprecedented at the time, I think they were a higher regarded team then than Forest are now, or than Forest were at the start of this season anyway. So maybe it came as less of a surprise. But I think when they got that Conference League, they got the European football, which for them was the first time in a long while. Their priority was to make sure that that wasn't an anomaly, make sure they could cope with Europe. And they were able to kick on and turn it into something special. I think that is exactly the way that we at Forest are now going to try and go. We're going to try and do everything we can to make sure this isn't just a one-season wonder team. If we can keep the core of the team around, so honestly, I think I'm pretty consigned to Gibbs White maybe not sticking around in the summer, which kills me to say. But if we can somehow keep hold of Murillo and the rest of the stars in the team, we keep Hudson-Odoi, keep Elanga, keep Elliot Anderson, all of these star players, we can keep that core. Obviously, we've shown this season there is no reason to say that we can't do it, because if we've got a similar team with a couple of new signings in, we've already done it. Like this season, we've already got European football. Few signings. We want to make this our level now. We want to make this upper end of the table. We want to stay here. We want that to be where we're aiming for every season. Obviously, we've fast tracked our growth incredibly quickly from being relegation contenders to being trying to get to this top end. But I think the thoughts amongst the fan base, or maybe through Forest, will be: we've done it once. If we improve the team, why can't we do it again? And why can't we do it even better? I'm not saying it's now an expectation that we're going to finish 7th or that we're going to get Europe again next season. I'm not saying that. I don't think many people are going to throw their toys out the pram if we come 10th, for instance. Although, to be fair, this day and age, that could still get us Europe for all I know. But I think it's not an expectation to get Europe again next season, but I think it will be a want. It's a semi-realistic target to get Europe again, to try and solidify this as our level, to make sure this isn't just a one-season thing. Improve the squad, keep as much of the core of the team that's done so well around, and kick on and try and get there or thereabouts once again. I think it's far too early for me to make a full-on prediction, though. I'll wait to see who we bring in and who comes and goes first, though.
Yeah, no, that's completely fair. And I think you've looked at it in a very realistic, unbiased manner, which I very much appreciate. Because I think it'd be so easy to say, yes, we need this now. This is our level. We're Nottingham Forest. We need to be fighting for the title every year. Because that's what we did in the 80s. Do you know what I mean?
Part of it wants to say that,
but no, I think a realistic target for getting European football after this season is completely fair. And yeah, I think I'm quite excited to see what happens next season.
Because you and me both, mate.
You've got a couple of qualifying games for the Conference League, haven't we now?
I don't think we play the qualifying rounds. I think we just go straight to the playoff.
Oh, dear.
So 21st and 28th of August, I think we're just straight into that round. So our big European journey could be over after one away day, which is quite daunting to think of, but I'll think of that in a couple of months.
Yeah, no, that would kind of put a spanner in the works, wouldn't it? Put an asterisk on the whole European Football Club thing.
God.
But I wish you the best of luck, and with this podcast you'll be able to come back and report every week on how Forest are doing, what are you thinking about it, and like I've said, you're going to have an actual Forest fan with you instead of me for the most part. I imagine I'll be able to give you a bit more insight and a bit more well-informed opinion on the club and the situation. But for now, you stuck with me, so thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate all your opinions and joining me on this call. And thank you for watching the Trent End Podcast. Please keep up to date with us on our socials and on our YouTube, because there's going to be a fair few club-specific podcasts coming out, and there's going to be one for your clubs shortly, probably. Have a lovely day. Thank you, Lewis. Cheers.
Thank you.
It's what I'm told. This is my home. It's all I know.